How did you become familiar with the Murdaugh family and the Mizell property? How did you start working there?
I was walking and Alex would stop and talk with me, and he asked me one day about cleaning the kennels for him, and probably a couple months, 6 months later, then he asked me to come do it on the weekends.
And that started about 4 years ago?
About 4 years ago.
And walk us through the process. What'd you do? How many times a day did you do it?
Twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening.
All right, what time in the morning, generally?
It average around 7.
You wake up early?
Oh yeah.
So 7 a.m. and then what time in the evenings, generally?
Usually around, I try to get there around 3:30, 4 o'clock.
How long does the process typically take you?
About 45 minutes.
And walk us through what that process is. What do you do out there?
In the morning times, I would go feed all the dogs, give them time to eat. I'd feed the chickens. That way the dogs would have time to eat. Then I'd wash the pens out. Then I would usually roll the hose up and then go to the house. And then come back in the afternoon and repeat the process.
Now you mentioned washing the pens out. Now the dogs, did they have dog beds in their kennels?
Yeah, Buster, excuse me, Grady and Bubba had 2 dog beds.
And if you're washing it out, meaning are you spraying it with water?
Sprayed it with water.
What did you do with the dog beds?
I would stick them up on top of the dog boxes.
And then, did you leave them up there or did you put them back?
Normally typically, once I wash the pens out, I would lay them back down, especially if it was cold in the wintertime, I would lay them back down on the ground. But during the summertime, you would wait to that afternoon to lay them back down on the ground.
In the 4 years you worked there, did you get to know the property fairly well?
Yes.
Did you get to know the folks that lived there pretty well?
Yes.
Did you get to know Maggie Murdaugh at all?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, tell us what your experiences with her were.
Normally, she was just so laid back. She would talk to you like a normal person. We'd sit down and talk about the dogs. She'd talk about sometimes where she would be at the beach. But she normally would tell me, I'm going to the beach. I'm taking Bubba and Grady with me or whatnot, or I'm going to leave them. Or if it was real hot, she would want me to put them over there in the ice house, turn the air conditioner on where they have the ice, the coolers at.
Did Maggie like to spend time with the dogs?
All the time.
And you mentioned the ice house. Was that the processing house kind of on the back of the hangar?
Property. That was the.
And why was it air conditioned? Is that why you said she put them in there?
Yeah, during the summertime, if it got real hot.
And that house, does it have air conditioning? That shed?
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right. What was your experiences with him?
He was a little wild and crazy, but he would work. That boy would work.
He liked being at the farm?
He liked getting out and doing things, hunting, but he would work on the tractor or whatever and Daddy needed him to do.
And did you get to know Alex?
I did.
Is he here today?
Yes, sir.
Where is he?
He's sitting right over there.
Do you explain what he's wearing?
Wearing a suit, pair of glasses, blue-looking shirt.
And what were your experiences with Alex?
He was always very particular. He would want the dog buckets washed out. If it looked like they started getting any kind of green or brown-looking stuff in the water, he wanted to make sure, which I usually wash them out every 2 weeks anyway, with bleach. But I always dumped them every day.
Was Alex easy to get a hold of?
No.
All right, explain that. What do you mean by that?
He would either be in court or doing something with business. It would sometimes be a little bit difficult to get a hold of him.
Who did you see most often when you were out there?
Miss Maggie or either Paul.
And how did Maggie and Paul typically come to and from the big house to the kennel area?
Paul would usually be in his truck.
We've heard a lot about trucks. Which truck was that?
His white F-150. And unless his daddy had him doing something, then he would have to drive the F-250. But most of the time he'd be in his white F-150.
What color was the F-250?
It was also white.
So 2 white trucks were what he typically used?
Yes, sir.
And how about Maggie?
She normally drove her Range Rover until she got the black Mercedes.
And then what would she drive after that?
Most times she would drive the black Mercedes.
And would she load her dogs at the house? First of all, let's go back. Which dogs were down there? Do you remember all the dogs?
Bubba, Grady, Maggie. Then they started letting, can't remember his name right on. Dahlia was there, Armadillo, and I call her Tappy Toes. I don't know what they called her, but that's what I always called her.
And I think the other dog, was that a dog owned by one of Paul's friends, Rogan? Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes.
What type of dog was it?
A lab, chocolate lab.
And which dogs were the family dogs, the family pets?
Grady, Bubba, and Maggie.
And what kind of dogs were they?
Labs.
And colors?
Bubba was yellow, Grady was black, and Maggie was yellow.
And would they where would they typically stay, those dogs, those animals?
It all depended on, most of the time, because Bubba was very rambunctious, so they would got where they would lock him up in the kennels at night. And most of the time they would lock all the labs up in the kennels to keep them from roaming off. But Miss Maggie would take them out when she was home. Usually a lot of times after I done left, she would take them up to the house and let them roam around the yard for a couple hours, and then she would bring them back down to the pens.
And would Maggie load them into her car if she was taking them elsewhere to the beach or wherever else she was staying?
Wherever she was staying at, she would load them in the vehicle. Most times she would load them right in her vehicle.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked State's Exhibits. Jim, any objections to these? I'm going to hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibits 505, 506, 502, 503, 504, and 516. Dale, if you wouldn't mind, please take a moment to review all these and let me know if you recognize what they show.
They showed a kennel.
Okay, and then I believe there's one diagram there, if you recognize what that shows.
It shows diagram drawing of the kennel.
Very good. Your Honor, we'd move to place all those exhibits into evidence, I believe, without objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
They're admitted without objection.
All right, Dale, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 505. Do we have the Elmo, please? Okay. Dale, while we get this loaded up, tell me a little bit. I know, did you have a particular way of hosing down and, with dealing with the hose? Tell us a little bit about what that was about.
The particular way of me putting the hose away, or
Right.
normally after I got through washing, I would stretch the hose straight out
Into which direction?
back towards the shed room right there, the dog feed room.
All right, and we now have the Elmo up. We're looking at Exhibit 505, and the feed room, I believe, is what you're referring to. Is that the structure on the far right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then where is, in this picture, where is the hose you're talking about located?
It's back towards the left-hand side, back towards the forest end.
Is that yellow
That's that
fish
yellowish
wrapped up?
green-looking hose.
All right, go ahead and explain to us what you would typically do after rinsing off and putting the hose away.
I would stretch the hose out back towards the feed room. I would cut the valve off at the top, which is right up above as the hose come in. Then I would walk back down and cut the valve on at the end of the hose. That way it would release the pressure, and then I would roll it up slowly until I had it uniform.
Were you pretty particular about how you wound that hose?
Yes,
And why would you do it that way? And did you do it that way every time?
every time.
And why would you do it so particularly?
Because if you notice how the hose right now is kinked up, it would start making the hose, when if you didn't do it right, eventually would it keep kinking, it would start making it where it didn't want to, and it would cause the hose to start having little splits in it.
The picture that you're seeing there, that hose, is that the way you would rewind it up?
No,
How do you know?
I'm very particular how I roll that hose up, and it's kinked up. If you notice, there's pressure on that hose. Somebody used that hose after I did, because it is twisted, and the nozzle is too far up. The nozzle, I would always have it made sure it was laid down flat. That nozzle is too far up.
Dale, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 516. And again, please briefly explain what it is we're looking at there.
The drawing of the kennel.
Okay. I'm going to hand you a pen, and with the court's permission, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and fill in well, first of all, let's back up. Did you work were you aware of the events surrounding June 7th, 2021, where Maggie and Paul were murdered?
I received a phone call from CD that the sled wanted to see me because Miss Maggie and Paul had been murdered, and I thought he was joking, but he told me no. I told him give me 5 minutes, I'll be up there, because I was going to carry my trash off at the time. And I got up there, and the dogs was raising Cain, and I asked them could I go ahead and feed the dogs so they would quiet down, and they told me to give them a few minutes, and then they gave me permission to feed them. As soon as I fed them, they just quiet down. They didn't bark no more.
Okay. So you were familiar about that incident? Event?
Yes, sir.
And you went out there what day?
That morning.
Was that the 8th, the morning of Tuesday?
When the murders happened, yes.
Did you work every day leading up to that day?
Yes.
And did you do that normal routine, which you already described?
Yes.
All right. And did you, in fact, do that normal routine on the Monday before the murders?
Yes.
Okay. Walk us through that day. What did you do in the morning?
I got there probably around 8 o'clock. It all depends on when I got up. But most time I got up early, I would be there before 6:30, 7 o'clock. I would go through there, feed the dogs, then go feed the chicken. That give the dog time to eat their food, and then I'd wash the pens out.
And was anything unusual or out of place when you were down there in the morning?
No.
And did you repeat the process again in the afternoon, in the evening time?
I did.
What time did you, on Monday, June 7th, what time did you go back to the pens?
I got there before 4 o'clock. 'Cause I remember leaving at 4:30.
All right. And was anyone there at the time you went to the dog kennels that day?
No,
Did you notice anything out of place when you went there at the dog kennels in the evening time?
no.
And what did you do after arriving?
Well, once I arrived that afternoon, I got out. I fed Grady, Bubba, and Maggie. 'Cause we fed them twice a day. The hunting dogs only got once a day. Took and fed them. I picked the dog beds up. I dumped all the water out because I washed all their bucket, gave them fresh water, washed the pens out. Stretched the hose out, cut the water at the valve off at the top. Went down there, cut the water on, the valve on down at the end of the hose, so the water would come out. Rolled the hose up, and at 4:30 I left.
And you rolled it. Did you roll the hose up the way you've always done it that day?
Every time.